First of all, we would like to apologize as we could not attend the conference here today. We have, however, prepared some slides to present our article entitled Elderly's Comprehension on Facebook, the Communicability Evaluation. This research was conducted by the doctoral student Carolina Sacramento and Professor Simone Bacelar Leal Ferreira. We are part of the Accessibility and Usability Research Group at Unirio, the Federal University of the State of Rio de Janeiro. Considering this scenario, we developed a research aimed at analyzing and comparing the interaction of elderly and non-elderly adults on Facebook based on the application of a communicability evaluation method for collaborative systems called MAG-G, and evaluating if aging limitations can generate different communicability results in elderly as compared with non-elderly users. For a better understanding of our research, it is important to explain the communicability concept, the main quality criteria of a system according to semiotic engineering, a human-computer interaction theory based on semiotics, which is the science responsible for studying meaning and messages of signs. Signs, in turn, are anything used by a person to say something, which can be words, images, sounds, etc. Semiotic engineering focuses on the communication between the designer and the user during the system's interactions and considers that the system interface communicates to users the designer's perception about who the users are, their desires, and needs. Consequently, the communicability is the software property that transmits to users the intention of the project and its interactive principles. In short, the communication between designer and user happens through the interface. It is a mediated communication, a meta-communication. To evaluate the communicability of an interface with user participation, semiotic engineering proposes the communicability evaluation method, which is MAC in Portuguese, consisting of observing users by experts who analyze how messages are interchanged between these users and the interface in order to identify communication breakdowns that may take place during such interactions. In collaborative environments, it's necessary to expand the user-system designer interaction point of view to a view that also considers interactions between users in the system as shown in the illustration. The evaluation method for collaborative systems, MAC-G in Portuguese, is an extension of the original MAC method and has three main stages: preparation, tests, and analysis interpretation of interactions. These stages will be detailed later. As mentioned before, the main difference is that MAC-G considers the interaction between people in the system, not just the user-system interaction. For this reason, the author of the method suggests that tags must be mapped from a combination of values that correspond to dimensions that are relevant to the interaction in collaborative contexts and represent possible communication breakdowns. These dimensions are used in the formation of tuples, which completely characterize the breakdown. The dimensions are, first, interaction level, where a communication breakdown may happen. Secondly, important collaborative aspects to support communication activities, coordination, and collaboration among the system members. And thirdly, time in which the breakdown occurs. In fourth place, the communication breakdowns that are identical to the original MAC method, only incorporating the tag who, considering that in collaborative systems there are breakdowns related to the identification of who performed an action. During the interpretation phase, the identified tuples were associated with 4 categories. First, lack of perception of virtual space, which occurs when there is no information about other group members or their interaction with the interface. Second, lack of discourse perception phenomena, which is the lack of information about the responses and reactions of other members. Third, lack of coordination perception, which occurs when the user does not have enough information about mechanisms that support the coordination of the group. And fourth, lack of technology perception, when missing information does not allow the user to notice problems related to technology. We adopted a qualitative exploratory approach based on a case study with multiple analysis units and consisting of the observation and application of the MAC-G in the interaction between elderly and non-elderly people with the Facebook in a comparative approach. The method was divided into 4 stages. 1. Definition of the social network system and the characteristics to be analyzed. 2. Definition of the Facebook version. 3. Definition of the evaluation method. And 4. Communicability evaluation. Regarding the limitations of the methods, we can highlight a mobile laboratory which was used in order to facilitate elderly participation. Moreover, there was also the fact that tests were restricted to participant-researcher communication. No analysis of communication actions were made among the participants of the study. We chose Facebook because of its popularity in Brazil. The selection of the features took into account collaborative aspects of social networks such as interpersonal communication, chat and sharing, and the like page because it is a popular resource. The desktop Facebook version was chosen because it is the most commonly used one by Brazilian elderly people, according to the results of a study made by the Brazilian government in the year 2014. The MAC-G evaluation method was selected because it is a semiotic engineering method and because it involves the users. Our study was carried out with 5 elderly members aged 70 to 90 and 5 non-elderly adults aged 30 to 50. In order to preserve the similarity between the profiles, we tried to select participants with similar characteristics. The average age was 75 for elderly participants and 38 for non-elderly adults. The tasks were: 1. To start a chat session with a friend, a researcher. The conversation would end when the friend would say goodbye. 2. They would have to access the profile of any friend, choose one of his publications, and share it with the researcher. And 3, they would have to access a public person's page and click like this page. 2 researchers performed the tests, one in the role of observer and the other as a participant interacting with the volunteers in task 1. To carry out the chat conversation, the researcher performed the following actions. The researcher called the volunteer by chat and asked him to point out how many mutual friends he had with another friend from his contacts, and to give some of the names of these friends. The task ended when the volunteer answered all the questions or after 10 minutes were up. We prepared a consent form with some guidelines for the tests and some ethical considerations, a pre-test questionnaire to collect demographic data and to identify the volunteer profile, along with a script for a post-test interview in order to record the feedback of participants. The tests were conducted at the volunteers' homes or workplaces. A mobile laboratory was used with a laptop equipped with a webcam to capture facial expressions. User interactions were also captured with specialized software. The analysis and interpretation of results were done in 3 steps: tagging, interpretation, and semiotic profiling. The 140 minutes of recorded interactions were analyzed, 92 minutes for the elderly and 48 minutes for non-elderly participants, in order to identify communicability breakdowns that occurred during user interaction and relate them with the communicability expressions, the tags. The table shows the number of each of the tags obtained per profile. Elderly participants took longer to perform the tasks, with an average of 18 minutes as compared to 9 minutes for the non-elderly members. This probably happened because elderly people type slower and systematically need to look down at the keyboard. Regarding the amount of communicability breakdowns, elderly people presented a higher value, 158 as compared to 66 of the non-elderly participants. The more frequent tag between the elderly was, "What is this?" with 49 occurrences. This may indicate the user's unfamiliarity with the designer's meaning system. During tests, participants try to understand icons and page elements by hovering the mouse over them in an attempt to find tooltips. The second most frequently identified tag among the elderly was, "What happened?" with 27 occurrences, probably related to the use of low contrast and of grayscale interface elements, common aspects in this social network. Another frequent tag among the elderly was, "Where is?" with 21 occurrences, indicating difficulty in finding items in the interface. Breakdowns obtained by non-elderly members were very different among the participants. The interaction of just one non-elderly person caused 29 of the 66 communicability breakdowns among all non-elderly people, about 44% in total, while other non-elderly participants had no breakdowns. "Help" and "What's this?" were the most obtained tags for non-elderly participants. Many communicability breakdowns could not be classified within the interaction problems categories proposed in the MAG-G method. There were no breakdowns related to lack of coordination possibilities perception because there were no group tasks or coordination activities. Similarly, the category lack of discourse perception phenomena was not identified in the obtained breakdowns because there were no situations where feedback of other members were absent. Regarding the category lack of perception of the virtual space, only one communicability breakdown could be associated. The tag "looks fine to me," which was identified in an elderly interaction, occurred because she did not know that there was a Facebook page for the chosen artist. The lack of technology perception category was present in breakdowns obtained by one elderly and one non-elderly person. The internet connection for both participants presented a temporary failure, resulting in various communicability breakdowns. In the last stage, a semiotic profile was created based on the characterization of meta-communication messages. Due to its very large size, the semiotic profile will not be read at this point. Results in communicability evaluation were very different for the elderly and the non-elderly. One of the main differences was related to the comprehension of Facebook language by the elderly, given the quantity of tags. What's this? They had difficulty in understanding interface signs, often represented by icons. Although this research was basically conducted in order to analyze and compare communicability in Facebook with regard to the elderly and non-elderly, the results showed the necessity to review the intercultural meta-communication within the long-range systems such as Facebook, because it integrates several generations within the same environment with their cultural differences and their related behavior, values, and communication styles. In addition, some results reinforced usability and accessibility problems mentioned in other studies in the existing literature. Thank you so much.